Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We are on volume 26 of Yona at the Dawn. Last volume was pretty crazy. We had Naguro's dead, and Yotaka's been stabbed in the back, and Mizari is injured, and our dragons are weak and have nooses tied around them, and Yona was fired upon by a bunch of arrows. Hak has 2 arrows in him, and then suddenly the dragons came and protected her, and Soo-Won's not even there yet, so it's been crazy. Last volume got pretty insane, and I feel like, I don't know if we're at the conclusion of the Xing arc yet. I feel like it's either going to be this volume, or we're going to get resolution with Soo-Won this volume, but then I don't know, or it's going to happen in volume 27. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, things got pretty gory and crazy last volume, and there was an actual character death. And I was like, oh my god. And Korin and Tao are just trying to get away from Gobi, this priest that turns out to be a bunch of religious zealots. And, you know, we're getting into some meaty stuff here, so I'm pretty excited. But I'm looking at the cover here, and at first, when I pulled up the thumbnail, I thought it was Soo-Won that was injured. And I was like, oh, but it turns out it's Korin that's injured. So still, the resemblance between Soo-Won and Korin is really striking, and I feel like there's something there. Maybe not, but who knows? But I'm so ready. It has been like the hottest week of the year, and I need to cool down with some Yona. But I don't know, things have heated up pretty good, so I don't know if that's gonna happen or not, but we shall see, right? So I'm not gonna waste any more time. I've been really excited. It's been almost a week since I read volume 25. I took a solid week off. I was like, nope, I'm gonna take a break. I had some other shows I wanted to react to in the meantime, so I took a break, but I got myself a glass of water, and I'm ready to go into this and see what happens. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? I'm ready to dive in. I hope you all are too. But we're going to start Yona the Dawn, volume 26. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's go. I think I've calmed down. Oh my god, nope, not calm down, no, I'm not calm down. He said it, he just came out. Of course he just came out and said it. That was the most Hak confession there could be. He pent up all this emotion, all this time for 26 damn volumes, and then he finally comes out and he's just like, I love you, damn it, don't you get it? And then he's like, okay, well, I feel better. Oh my god! This volume felt so fast. Like reading it, it was just going so quickly, this volume. And I looked up at one point, and I felt like I was halfway through, and I looked up and I've been like reading for 14 minutes, and I was like, are we halfway through the volume now? Which this volume just went by really quickly. There was a lot happening, but Kusanagi, my girl, bless you. Bless you. Because here's the deal. I could have waited another couple volumes before we got anything further with Yona and Hak. I really could. At this point, we have been slow burning for 26 volumes. I could keep it going. That was fine. I'm not so over the moon. I am over the moon at the confession. I mean, I am over the moon at that. Like, we'll talk about it. But, it's not that that's made me so happy, but it's the fact that Kusanagi, thank God, she gives us, like, angst and tension in this volume, but she doesn't drag it out. That's why I'm like, thank you, Kusanagi. Mwah. Thank you so much. Like there are other mangaka or other authors that I've read that would take like that little seed, that whole thing with Hayami. I've read stories where that little thing with Hayami would drag out for like 14 chapters, and you're like, just sort it out already. And it's a misunderstanding. And Kusanagi, thankfully, does not have time for that melodrama. Kusanagi's like, you guys have been dished up some drama this volume. 2 people have died. 2 characters have died. The dragons were nearly hauled off. That part sucked. And then there's this misunderstanding with Yona and Hak. And Kusanagi, rather than dragging it out and making us, the audience, be like, it's a misunderstanding. Thankfully, Hak is not about that life. Hak is like, no, we're gonna patch this up right now. That's why he's the top husbando, damn it. He does not drag out that useless bullshit. He's like, let's communicate here. And I'm like, thank you, God. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Hak, my husbando, my king. I'm like, our dark dragon. He's like, I'm going to say this once. We're going to clear all this up. I'm not into Yami, and I love you. And I'm like, oh. And I think, honestly, the conversation she had with him earlier, the day before, I think is what allowed him to be like, okay, it's time. It is time. As Rafiki doesn't like it is time. But we're going to talk about this volume. I can't believe we got the confession. And Hak, if I were to guess, I was going to guess that Hak was going to confess first, because it just seemed like he's a very he doesn't beat around the bush. Hak is very blunt, and he's been waiting for this moment to tell her how he feels, and now's the time. And it's just like he finally admitted that he loved her, and the other dragons, we'll talk about all of them in this. But yeah, he's like, I'm going to nip this in the bud before it gets any worse and just lay it out on the line. I'm like, oh my God. And that's where we ended the volume. But there's so much to happen this volume. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I'm so glad. So glad. Because as much as I think Yona, well, no, Hak's been in love with Yona for a while. But even though Yona's finally come to terms with it, and I think Hak finally figured out what she was meaning. He's like, oh, you do care about me that way. Okay, well then let's just go ahead and say it. I am glad that, because Yona was second guessing herself and worrying so much. And Hak was finally like, enough of this. Let's just put it out there. And I'm like, oh. I feel like us, the audience, are like, oh my God, well now it's out there. Now it's out there that he loves her. Oh my God. And she'll probably be like, as a friend or a family member? And he'll be like, no, damn it. Things are going to get interesting from here on in, aren't they? Because we've got, like, what is the manga's on volume 38 now, so it's had 10 more volumes since this. Oh my God. Chapter 152, when we get to it. Oh my God. Okay, we need to go through this. Algira, or is that, no, it's Kija with the kitty. It's Kija Kitty. I thought it was Algira when we started, but it's Kija Kitty with the cat. Oh, which is fitting because a few volumes ago when they had the guy in the town square telling the story about the white dragon, he used a white cat, and so there he is holding him. All right, I went back just to see, but I didn't look at the titles, but chapter 147, aw. And then, okay, so we are, I like that. Kija is grabbing a hold of Jeha's foot. So we see Jeha's dragon foot, and Kija has his dragon arm overhead. Now, see, that is some Jeha Kija shipping right there, because Jeha doesn't show his foot to anybody, but he shows it to Kija, and Kija's grabbing it with his dragon arm. Oh, now see, look at that. Oh my God. So yeah, I love Yoon in this opening shot where Hak and Yoon are just both like, we've been traveling with these dragons this whole time. That's never happened before. And everybody else is just kind of stunned. But yeah, it just, those dragons just destroyed the arrows. And then Zeno and all of them are just, they're zapped. I like that Owl the whole time is still trying to push Acorns like, you okay? So this Gobi priest, he's awful. Man, he is like just such a zealot, and you get to see like his internal monologue there where he's talking about how he's envious. He's envious of the dragons and the power that they have, and it's divine power, which, God, that all came full circle in this. Man, the ultimate setup and payoff by Kusanagi was with Soo-Won in this volume. That was the ultimate setup and payoff. I was like, oh my God, girl, ooh, that's writing, that you just feel it. If you've ever been a writer of anything or you've read really good stories, it's just like, that's that one thing that comes back. And it's been a constant defining feature of Soo-Won that he's been for the power of the people, not gods. And Zeno set it up earlier where he's like, well, do you want to use this? And he's like, no, why? And now it all is put to use, and it's, we'll get to it, but it's like just chef's kiss. It's so freaking good. But yeah, so this guy where he's like, I don't have time for this. I want to see the Princess Tao get married to Soo-Won. I want to learn about the monsters of Koka and possess them myself. I want to kill Korin. There's so much I want to do. Like, this priest, he's just awful, right? And our poor dragons are out. And I'll be honest, this chapter here, where they were like trying to drag the dragons away, it was so stressful. Like, I was wanting to read faster because I just didn't like it. I was like, I don't want to see our dragons be dragged away. And they're not monsters. They're not weapons. Leave them alone. Because they kept talking about how, like, oh, well, Koka's hoarding this power, and can you claim that it belongs to Coco? Like, they're people, they're dragons, they've got dragons inside of them, but they're people too, and for them just to be treated like objects, it was so frustrating, and I hated it. I was like, no, stop it. And you could see why Zeno, who's lived through that so many time and time again, why he would be like, yeah, no, this has been going on for a while. So that's kind of why he left, right? Oh my God. Okay, so we got our first mangaka note. I'm curious to see what she says about this volume, especially when we get over to Hak, or although she may save that for volume 27, if I'm being honest. Hello, this is volume 26 of Yona the Dawn. I've been drawing Yona for quite a while now. The years are just flying by. It's surprising to remember that I started this when I was in my 20s. Oh, and I mentioned in volume 24 that it had been 9 years since I started Yona, but technically it's that I'd started year 9, so during volume 24. So I guess the actual 9th anniversary will be around August 2018. At the time of volume 24, it was the 8th anniversary. Let's carry on with the Xing arc. Man, she's been doing this for a while, but man. Can you imagine writing a story like this and then waiting all this time to get to that confession? It's so worth it, though. This story's so good. But yeah, and Yoon being like, they're not some weapon of war. And they just try to haul Yoon off. And poor Yoon, Yoon's just trying to protect the dragons. And all he can think about in the moment is he's like, I don't know what this power is, but I know that they're hurt and that they need help. And it's like, and then Hak is just like, he's like Thunder Beast. And Hak is like, I'm going to take him with me. And he has Kija and Jeha over his shoulder, which, you know, Zeno can take care of himself, and Hak's priorities are not Sheena. Oh, man. But they try to take them away, and just all the imagery of the hands, and Hak with Jeha and Kija in his arms, and the hands all reaching and grabbing in his cloak, and Hak just looking so murderous, with his shoulder injured and everything. Oh. And Hak feels like he's like, how can I free myself of this hatred? This whole thing with Hak's like, I want to kill everybody here. Everyone that's hurt, everyone I care about. He's like, I want to murder all of them. But I know that I can't, and I shouldn't. It's not that he can't. He's like, I know I shouldn't, because I don't want to cause anything to go wrong. I don't want to let Yona down. And I want to, uphold what the dragon started. He's like, but it's so hard. Like, Hak's self-restraint. Oh my God, this volume. He's had some pent-up emotions, and he finally just had to let it out. But that's the thing. It ties back to that whole discussion Hak and Yona have had this whole time about how if we were by ourselves, we couldn't have done this. Hak's like, I couldn't have kept it in. I couldn't protect everybody on my own. Yona's like, I couldn't have done it by myself. And Algira and Voldo just prove the point that Hak and Yona aren't alone. They have allies that are there to help them. And it's like, I'm so glad they cut the ropes like around Sheena and around Zeno and take care of him. I love it. He's like, thank you, Hak Kitty. It's like, oh, I love Algira. He's so sweet. And Voldo too. God, the thing with Yotaka and Voldo, I'll never get over it. It's the funniest damn thing to me. It gets me every time. But yeah, so Tao confronts Gobi and then Yona. And I love that Gobi, this whole time, the priest had been like talking Tao up, but he was really just using her. Just like they were, just like Korn and them said they were afraid of. And then I love that Yona's like, her words reached me. So don't treat her like she's less than a princess. And I'm like, I love that Yona's made friends with all the girls. Like Yona and Riri and Tao and Korin, like a princess's court. Like they've all made, even though Riri's technically not a princess, they've like just formed this like union together. I freaking love it. But yeah, and then Gobi freaking, I love that Gobi's like, oh, just kill them all. And I'm like, what a hypocrite. But then I love that Korin says, watch your head. The concept of mercy has always been beyond him. Mizari he goes on a weird turn in this because I've not liked Mizari's character much during this story, but in his final moments, I actually kind of do like him because he stood up for Princess Korin and wanted to protect them and defend Naguro, and he's just like bleeding to death. Oh, but he's like, I vowed to Sir Naguro that I would destroy all your enemies, and I'm here to protect you. And he does till the end. I love, though, we'll talk about Misari at the very end there, but I love how Kusanagi draws Yotaka, like, with the weird little cat face, like, cat eyes. Like, that's always her go-to, like, funny face, is, like, the little cat eyes. Yona gets it a lot. Hak gets it when he's imitating Pew. And then we have Yotaka has it very much, where he's just like, don't try to move. And he's like all the images of Yotaka being so cute. And they're like, he's so floofy. I wonder if we can put oil in his hair. And he's like, oil to save my strands? And they're like, that got him. Oh my God. And then Soo-Won showing up. What I love about this chapter with Soo-Won is when Yotaka, I love that Teiyu, like, defends Yotaka, because at first they're like, oh, we'll kill him. And Teiyu's like, no, he's fine. Leave him alone. I love it. And I love that Yotaka's like, I expected the son of Yuhan to have a demon's face. And it's like, to be detestable. And he's like, you're not what I imagined that you'd be. He's like, you're not as I imagined. He's like, and I don't know what to make of it. He's like, I thought you'd all be demons and horrible, but here Teiyu has saved me. He's helped me after all this time. He's like, so I can't really think what I thought about people from here anymore. He's like, it's not like I thought it was going to be. And so they find out and talk about Korin and Tao meeting up with him. And he's like, he finally decides, it's like, fine, I'll help get Tao and Korin over here and we'll see where it goes. And Teiyu helps him. It's like, ugh. And we flash back to Yotaka's, like, past. And he's like, I thought that only demons lived in Koka. And we see Yotaka as when he was younger, looking at Yuhan. And Yuhan has the head, like, on his sword. And has all the heads tied up, like, on spikes, like, ready to go back to the people. But Soo-Won's not his father, thankfully. I do love that Teiyu's like, well, you still tell Voldo hi for me. He's like, I don't know who that is. Every time Yotaka denies Voldo's existence, it cracks me up, because I'm like, it's so damn funny, right? It's so funny. I'm like, oh my God, it's great. But, like, his little face going back to General, and knowing that Namsek doesn't like the 5-star warriors, that's always good to know. Like, he doesn't care for him. But just the camaraderie between the 5 stars, it's such a parallel to the dragons. And it makes it all the sadder when you see that Naguro and Misari die. It's like, perhaps we should have learned much more and much sooner. That's what I love, when he's like, perhaps we should have learned much more and much sooner. Like, if we had been more open-minded and tried to learn more about Koka and Soo-Won and them from the start, rather than let our hatred of the past control us, this could have been avoided. It may not have been, but there's a chance it might have been. And there's at least a chance that Misari and Naguro wouldn't have had to die. So that's really sad, the fact that he's like, I wish we'd had learned more sooner so that we could have stopped things. It's like, he's like, I couldn't repair all those tiny tears. So it's just like, he's like, everything that I'd built up over 17 years was destroyed in just a few days. And I guess that kind of goes for Hak too, you know? You talk about, which Hak's 19, so not 17 years, but like everything that Yutaka and all of them have built up over all these years, all the hatred, it comes kind of unraveled within a few days. And Hak, all these years where he's been pinting up this pining, he finally just reaches a breaking point. And he's like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to tell you how I feel. Again, we'll get to that. But we have a second mangaka note here. At signings and in letters, readers have been telling me their ages and professions. It's so interesting to see the wide spectrum of people who are reading this. There are students, of course, but many people around my age, too. Sometimes parents come to signings with their children. Occasionally, there are men, too, all from different fields. From time to time, someone will say that they're embarrassed to be buying Hanatayume at their age, but there are plenty of Hanatayume readers over 30. It's not an issue. I'm like, yes! Yes! Oh, man, and seeing that double spread of Algira and Missouri and Voldo and them protecting Korin, it's so freaking good. And I love that. Again, you have the parallels. You have the parallel of Yona and the dragons with Korin and the 5 stars. It's great. And, of course, in this case, though, I guess Missouri is kind of the Zeno equivalent, and he dies, which is kind of ironic because he's the youngest and Zeno's the oldest, and Zeno can't die and Misari does die. So it's that contrast there. And then Neguro and Hawk are similar in their undying loyalty to their princesses, but Hawk lives and Neguro dies. So it's interesting. And so, yeah, I love that Misari and Yotaka get back to back. And Yotaka's like, you've done well, Misari. And Misari's like, you've never praised me before. And he has like the little blush. And so Yotaka's like, whatever you decide to do, Your Highness, I'm going to back you up. And I love that Yona and Hawk are like, all right, let's do this. And man, Kusanagi draws Korin really good and just tells them to follow her. But then Gobi using the girl as the shield so that she can get slashed. Oh, that was just dirty. I didn't like that at all. Did not like that one bit at the end of chapter 148. No. So chapter 149 is called Gods. Oh my god, I love this chapter. This chapter 149 is great. We've got all of our dragons. We see their powers. You see Zeno with like the little scales coming up his hand. And I love the little drawing of Hot Kitty. It's great. So yeah, but Korin's not gonna be taken down easily. She's like, even though she gets slashed, she's like, no, she stands up. And I like the idea that even though the people of Xing, even though they are wary of her and they don't agree with a lot of her policies, she's still their princess, and they don't want her to die because they know she is going to be good for the kingdom in the long haul, right? And then Hawk even makes note. He's like, Korin's sword fighting techniques, they take a lot of training. And so Hawk's like, she must have always intended like she was going to go on the front line. And that's when Tao's like, this is what I didn't want. I didn't want to see my sisters and our loved ones battered and bleeding. Which again, you have like the Yuhan and King Il parallels where King Il didn't want violence. He didn't want to see people. Like you could argue King Il didn't want to see Yona battered and bleeding and getting injured. Same thing with Tao. And then you have Yuhan, who you kind of ironically compare to Korin going on the front lines and kind of training for that moment. So it's interesting. And then I love that Yona grabs her hand, like grabs Tao's hand, like it's going to be okay, right? We'll go to your sister and we'll go there and go find Soo-Won together. It's like, and then at first Yona's telling Yuna and Hawk to take care of Kija and the others, but Zeno tells Hawk to go with Yona. Zeno, matchmaker extraordinaire, setting Hak and Yona up. We'll get to Zeno later when the dragons are talking with Yona. Old Zeno and Jeha and Kija. We'll talk about all them. But he's like, we're still paralyzed. But he's like, don't worry about the 4 dragons. You go and don't let go of our young lady's hands. And he's like, don't you guys die. I'm like, Zeno. He's like, Zeno won't die. Oh, you weren't referring to me. I just love that Zeno's like, go young man. Stay with our lady. It's like, But poor Misari, he like keeps fighting until the point where he dies. He falls over. And the first thing he thinks of is Zeno. We got another manga note before this. Readers, especially those overseas, often demand a continuation of the anime. But the fact is, I only draw the manga, so there's really nothing I can do to make that happen. The anime is done by an anime company, and the stage show is done by a stage show company. I don't have control over these things. Regardless, I plan to continue the Yona of the Dawn manga the way I want. I do wonder what I should draw once Yona is over, but for now, Yona is all I can think about. So yeah, that is a good point that she makes. It's like she has no control over the anime continuing, but she's like, I'm just gonna keep drawing the manga, and if they decide to do something with it, cool. But so Misari, that panel of Misari where he says, I want more time. I want it so badly. And he's about to cry. That's so good. Like just, that made me feel for him. With him telling Zeno he wanted more time. And Zeno would know all too well what others think when it comes to like that. And he's like, he wanted to see what Korin would be able to do to help her. And he called Korin his goddess. Like when she found him. He says, you don't have to look back at me, but remember me once in a while. And then he died. Ugh. It's so sad to see actual characters in this series die. Like to see Neguro and Misari actually die. It's like, oh my god. Because, you know, you get accustomed to like, oh, everything's fine. Nobody's going to die in this series. And then we lose 2, like, within 2 volumes. I'm like, oh my gosh. Ugh. And then Yutaka gets really injured, but they all manage to work together to get her to Soo-Won. Like, to get there in one piece. And I love that everybody's like, is that General Hak and Princess Yona? And Soo-Won's like, oh, the entourage is here. And I love that everybody is all concerned. We've come here for the future. Xing and Koka. So I like that she says, I'm Korin, the elder daughter of Bushin, king of Xing. And this is Tao, his second daughter. And all Soo-Won says is, I'm Soo-Won, king of Koka. I was expecting him to say son of Yuhan, but he does not, which is probably for the best, considering their relations. And then, God, it all comes full circle in the most beautiful... I was like, Kusanagi has set up from day one, from the moment that Soo-Won became king, Kusanagi has set up that he has been someone for the people. He does not care about the divine powers of the gods. He doesn't care about them at all. He's not about that life. And this priest, who is so envious and so greedy, he's like, well, your dragon warriors were held prisoner. He's like, you must know what's happened to your warriors. And he's like, I don't have any connection to them, so it means little to me. And I just love the priest is like, aha! Like that expression just gets worse and worse. And if you notice, we're getting more and more of King Ill's conversation with him, more and more. In the last volume, or in the volume before that, we got Soo-Won. She is the reincarnation of the Crimson Dragon King, and that was it. And now it's, you're not like her. So we're getting more of that conversation. More of it's coming up. And he's like, well, aren't you the Crimson Dragon King? He's like, what king wouldn't want that divine power? So there's something that King Ill has told him about the divine power. And since Soo-Won doesn't like King Ill, he's probably like, well, I don't care. I don't want that power, old man. I don't want any of that. And so I want to know that conversation, but I know I don't want spoilers because I know we're going to find out more about it. Like, Kusanagi is slowly peeling back the curtain, and I'm like, oh, the reveal is going to be so good, and I'm so excited for it. And I don't want to know when it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I want it to be a surprise. It'll be fun. But he's like, what's the big deal about divine power? And he's like, I came here to have a dialogue with people. Gods are of no use to me. It's perfect because it's so perfect. It fits absolutely in line with Soo-Won's character that has been established since volume 1. It fits perfectly with that. It fits with the narrative. It gets Priest Gobi out of there. It gets the dragons to be safe with Yona and Hak. It's like, it's great storytelling. And I'm like, Kusanagi, you genius. It's so satisfying after seeing like all that stress and anxiety over the dragons to see Soo-Won go, I'm sorry, but it seems as if you can't comprehend what I'm saying. Kindly leave. And I'm like, it was like the biggest breath of fresh air. I was like, oh, thank God. And even Corin laughed. She's like, to think that I'd get a laugh out of you. Like, And she's like, I can still speak with you. Again, they still look very similar, but I love him just dismissing the priest and him running off is like the thing that brought them together. And so then we have chapter 150 which is resolution. I'll have the little the one-shot little cover art there with Yoon and Zeno and little PQ. I like that there's a lot of Zeno and Yoon together. It's a fun time. That shot of Yuno holding Mazari, like saying farewell to him. There's something about that shot about Zeno with Mazari that's just kind of, it's really tragic and sad, but there's something about Zeno's look there. It looks very dragon-like and like wise beyond its years. It's just a really good shot. And so yeah, then we have the treaty, the talks happening, the summit. And Princess Tao being bold. She was like, will you allow Princess Yona and Master Hak to participate? And Kishuk and Judo are like, nope! And Soo-Won's like, And she's like, she's the one who made all this possible. She has a right to see it through. And Kishuk is not trusting at all of Yona. So I don't like that Yona's on Kishuk's list. I don't like that. I don't like that Kishuk is going behind Soo-Won's back to do research. I don't like that either. No, because I feel like there's a part of me that thinks maybe Soo-Won knows more than he's letting on about the Dragon Warriors, and he just doesn't care, and so he's not talking about it. But Ki-Shuk doesn't know, and so I'm worried about that. I don't like that at all. And Yona's like, it's okay, we're not going in. We're not going to make this more awkward. And Tao basically, like the Wind Tribe talk about, she basically says, Yona has fostered this relationship with us. We don't want anything bad to happen to her and her friends. Basically saying, if you want to negotiate with Xing, Yona and Hak and the others are safe. And I'm like, good. Because honestly, after these last couple volumes, everybody's going to be going after the Dragon Warriors now because they think that they're this powerful weapon. And it's like, oh no. It really has me worried for them a lot. And the only good thing right now is that Tao's basically told Soo-Won, like, you can't attack them. They're our friends. It's like, okay, good. Good deal. Ah! So, and she's like, you came. And so Riri, of course, comes up there. And Riri's like, I'm not scared of anything. And then we don't see Soo-Won at first. We see the members from Xing come out. And she said, Xing's diplomatic relations and military will be monitored by Koka. Things are unequal. But King Soo-Won promised not to threaten our people's lives. She was like, I was to blame for not keeping Gobi and his people under control. I had no choice. So yeah, I love that it's in that moment, them saying it's not equal, but it could have been a lot worse. For a second, I thought it was somebody's hand in that bottom panel on page 110. I thought it was somebody's hand coming out from under the panel, but it's really just them pulling back the curtains and Soo-Won, Ki-Shuk, and Judo coming out. That look, though, between Soo-Won and Hak, that look that Hak gives is murderous. Like, Hak is holding back so much. That look where Hawk's just like, I don't know what you said to her, but you're lucky that it's just the two of us. Like, that is a murderous look of Hak holding back. And so Ki-Shuk, of course, tells the freckled-faced soldier to go investigate Yona and the dragons. Of course he does. Nothing good will come of that, I'm sure. And then, I like that Voldo's like, I want to say goodbye to the dragons. Or Algira's like, Voldo, I want to go say goodbye to them. And then Algira says, I wasn't really close to Negoro and Mazari, but I wish I could have talked to them more. Which is sad. And I like that Korin's like, I'm fine. And Yuri's like, no, you're not. You're a Tetra. See to this. And so, and of course, Yuri and Tetra are freaking strong. So they basically just drag her away to tend to her. So then we have Yotaka waking up. And I love that Yotaka's like, oh my god, you have boobs. It's like, yes, Korin is in fact a woman. She is in fact. And I love that he's like, are we in the red light district? I just love how innocent she is. And she's like, get me a coat. Yotaka's freaking out. It's great. I love it. And so I like that Yotaka says, of the 5 stars, only I remain. And Algira's like, Voldummy and I are right here. And he's like, you don't count. And his facial expressions are just so cute. Like, oh my god. Yotaka is freaking adorable. I can't help but love it. And I love that Teiyu has become Yotaka's friend. I love that, where he's like, I'm Teiyu, we're cool. If you need anything, I'll bring some medicinal dishes. We're fine. And Yotaka tells Korin, he's like, they're not the demons. Not everyone's a demon like we thought. And then he's like, I wish I could have told Neguro. And then she says, I'm going to take their bodies back so they can rest. And Yotaka cries. Ugh. So then everybody says their farewells. Algira gets to say goodbye to the dragons. Korin and Tao say goodbye to Yona. And so then we get Ki-Shuk saying that princess is dangerous. I don't like where that's headed. I feel like he's going to try to do something behind Soo-Won's back, and Soo-Won's going to be like, the fudge. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so they talk about these powers, though, the whole thing with the dragons. And Zeno's like, the dragons have this really great power, and it's mainly to protect Yona, because that's, the gods are tied to the Crimson Dragon King. And so Kija's like, well, could we master this power and use it on our own? And Zeno's like, Zeno does not recommend that. Zeno doesn't have anything to fear, but it would shorten your lives. which is really sad. We don't want that. And Yona's like, don't use that power again. Because she's like, I want to keep you guys as alive as long as possible. It's like, ugh. And so then they're like, where's the Thunder Beast? And so Hawk being injured, but Yona making note that he looks so intense no one could approach him. Like, Hawk's just had a very bad day. Right? But he's injured, so Yona goes off to find him and hears someone talking about Hawk. And then we have our mangaka note here. Voldo, were you wearing that mask because you were working as a member of the anti-war faction? No, it's because my nose won't stop running. Nasal inflammation. I am sad we didn't get to see Voldo under the mask. But we get some Hawk fan service. Get some upper torso Hawk and arm fan service as Ayame tends to his wounds. Notice though, he's still wearing the pendant. Even after getting injured and has like his robe down so that she can help like wrap his arm. He still has the pendant that Yona gave him. So chapters 151 and 152 are great. They're wonderful. Might be some of my favorite chapters. Not 151. 151 is like made me go like want to shake my screen. 152 is amazing. But 151, a side of you I've never seen. I love the concept of this. We'll talk about this in the mangaka note. So the mangaka note, before we get any further into this, she says, about the Nation of Xing arc. This arc involves so many people that it was difficult to choose what to draw. And Xing arc or not, Yona is the protagonist, so I tried not to spend too much time on the backstories of the Xing characters. I wanted to draw more of Mizari, which I enjoyed. Visually, I liked Yotaka. My readers disliked Mizari, haha. But I'm sad I can't draw him anymore. People tend to hate wicked characters, but I quite enjoy drawing them. For example, a lot of people dislike Keishuk, but I have fun drawing him. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, villains can be fun to mess around with, right? I get her there. So, Yona barely knows Ayame. She knows that she's somebody that she recognizes from Fuga. And she goes to say Hawk's name, but then all the people from the village go and help out too. And I wondered if Yona was going to get jealous of Ayame checking to see that he has a fever. And he's like, I gotta go back to my friends. And the whole time Hawk wants to leave to go back to Yona and the others. And everybody's like, no, stay here. And she says, it's because he became my body. Yona still thinks that Hawk wants to come back to see her and the dragons because he's her bodyguard. And it's like, no, he wants to go back and see you because he likes you. But Yona doesn't get it. And then we get the bombshell that Hawk and Ayame were at one time betrothed. And she's like, what is fiance? I think I said fiance and it's fiancé. Y'all know what I meant. But she's like, oh, the old man decided that when we were kids. And of course, Yona assumes, she's like, oh no, Moondog's approved. This is a thing. And she runs off like in every rom-com, runs off before all the information is given. And they're like, well, she's Saki's girlfriend now. And so we see Saki come up and like rub her head. And they're like, Lord Hawk got dumped. And he's like, I know. And the old man was happy about that too. He's always playing village matchmaker. So his grandfather was trying to set Hawk all the people up together. And Hawk's like, yeah. But he is so comfortable around all of his people. And Yona's not used to that. That she's like, oh. And so then Hawk comes back and she's like, I want him to get well. And she knows that she knows that he's lying. He does have a fever and he's saying he's fine. And then Yona shows how she's jealous. She's like, she was so beautiful and mature. And I'm pretty sure she's the same age as me. Hawk said I was so different from her and that I should try to be sexier. And he was joking at the time, but she takes it as, oh, I'm not attractive like she is. She'd be great. Be like, and he's like, he's stuck with me even though he has someone like her. And it's like, Yona, you're so great. Don't compare yourself. It's like, don't compare yourself to her. But that's so easy to do, right? If you like somebody and you think that they like someone else and you're like, well, they're so great, you know? It's like, ugh. And then she remembers that he kissed her or that she kissed him. And she was like, oh God, I did that. It's like, oh, you did. And he's like, are you okay? And she's like, nope. And she runs away from him. And she's like, I did something totally rash. I'm like, I kissed an engaged man. No. And so then she remembers that Hawk wanted to talk to her. And I love that she does the same thing Riri does. She goes, no. Like, does the same Riri face. Like, the same hiding the eyes. Same thing as Riri. It's absolutely hilarious. But then she says, ever since I was little, I believed that I was the girl Hawk was closest to. And so her realizing she's never seen him one-on-one with his people like this. And she's like, I barely recognized him. He was so different. But she's like, all I know about him really is when he's been around me in my little world. She's like, I don't know what he's like with his family and friends. She's like, he's a totally different person. So she's seeing this other side to Hawk that she had never seen before. And she's like, I've been so self-centered. And I'm like, no, girl, no. But, And so then all the dragons, Zeno's back to normal because of course he is. The other dragons can't move. And Hawk and them help them up. And then Yona keeps running away. And I love when they chase after each other. He's like, get back here. It reminded me of Volume 1 where she like runs after him. And he's like, no, it's great. And he's like, why are you running away? She's like, every day is a matter of life and death for me. And he's like, quit it. And she like wears him out. And he's like, you're not looking at me. Something's wrong. If you didn't want to see my face, then why'd you kiss me? And she's like, wah! And he just grabs the water and she's like, oh, so you do remember. I'm glad I didn't imagine it. And then she panics and says it was a farewell gesture. And Hawk's like, you're joking? I love that Hawk says, please give me an explanation I can be satisfied with. She's like, no. I love that he's like, you owe me something better than that. And she thinks that he didn't want it. She's like, I won't do it again. And he's like, it didn't bother me. I'm fine with it. And the thing of it is, he's been giving her these hints the last several volumes of being like, I'm okay with you flirting with me. I'm okay that you kissed me. I'm fine with it. And it's like, it just isn't clicking, right? And she's like, I need to hear what you had to say. And he says it's nothing. And that's when they have the conversation where she's like, well, the Wind Tribe's leaving. Shouldn't you go with them? And he's like, why would I go? And she's like, oh, well, everybody's getting better. You don't need to worry about us. And he's like, do you not need me anymore? Are you letting me free? Are you setting me free? And she's like, whether I need you or not isn't the point. You care so much about the Wind Tribe and Ayame. And he's like, what does Ayame got to do with this? I love the Hawk's like, wait, what? Who? Why are you bringing her into this? And he's like, of course I do. He's like, it's all the more reason I can't go back. He's like, I didn't mean, it's not like that. I like that he's like, I love my family and friends, but haven't I made it annoyingly clear that I'm not leaving your side? And he's like, do I need to spell it out? And yes, you do. Because Yona's like, well, you're saving me. And once I am able to handle things on my own, I thought I'd release you and you should do what you want. And that's what Hawk's been waiting on. See, Hawk's been waiting this whole time for her to ask, for her to let him go. And his whole dilemma, this entire half of the series has been, okay, if she lets me go, what am I going to do? If she lets me free and doesn't need me to be her bodyguard anymore, am I going to be free to tell her how I really feel since I won't be her bodyguard anymore? I'll just be her friend and her companion. And he's like, am I going to be able to do that? And so in this moment, he's like, are you saying that the time's come where you don't need me anymore? And he's like, okay, I appreciate your consideration. And he turns around like, okay, then, like planning on what he's going to do. And then chapter 152, it's one of my favorites. I care about many things. And Yoon's like, okay, everybody's back to normal, with the exception of they can't raise their arms and legs. So they're like spoon feeding him. I like that Yona has Kija and Jaeha has Yoon. And then Sheena has Hawk helping him. And Hawk's like, I gotta go do something tomorrow. And everybody thinks it's this big thing. I thought it was this big thing. I thought he was gonna meet somebody special, or go to the Wind Tribe or get some special thing. But no, it's just he knows a merchant that's nearby and he went and got some weapons and stuff. He's gone for half an hour and he's like, okay, I gotta go over here. I'll be right back. That's all there is to it, right? So meanwhile, before he leaves, him and Zeno make sure that Yona's okay to bathe. That everything's okay. She's like, I need to be quick. And so she's like, Hawk's headed out. I can't keep him bathing. And so I like that she's like, I gotta hurry up. And I love that Zeno's like, man, the young lady bathes energetically, right? And I love Hawk's shade. Hawk is like, well, every day's a matter of life and death for her. He didn't forget that. Hawk's like so petty in that moment. He's like, yeah, everything's a matter of life and death, huh? Like he's just still trying to mull things over. And Yona's talking about how sad Hawk looked. And she's like, I can't keep causing problems for him. I'm like, girl, you're not causing problems for him. You just need to get your feelings out in the open. And so Hawk ends up going. He's like, don't catch a cold. And she's like, well, you don't have to do things. You have things to do, right? I can take care of myself. And he's like, I guess that's true, isn't it? And so he's kind of upset with her. And I love that she's like, I want him to smile. And so then when he takes off, everybody's like, man, Hawk's kind of down in the dumps, isn't he? And Jaeha's like, come here, Yona. Come over here. We need to talk. I love it. Jaeha's like, hey, did something happen between you and Hawk? And she's like, what? And God, this next scene. But we've got a manga note before we go into that. I wanted to draw more about Xing, but I still had Yona's story to tell. The Nation of Xing arc is over for now. I didn't have many extra pages in this volume. I always have to do my initial pages quickly, so when the story comes out in new volumes, I clean up the art and adjust the expressions to be more like what I imagined. But sometimes after I touch up the faces, people tell me that the first version was better. This time around, I didn't like the changes I made to many of the panels I fixed, so I reverted them to the way they were published in the magazine. I wish I could draw things the way I imagined them on the first try. God, she's so relatable. I'm like, girl, it's true story. True story. But so yeah, so Jaeha's like, hey, we need to have a little sit down. Just Yona and the dragon. Dragon talk time. Dragon talk between the Crimson Dragon King and his 4 dragons, or your 4 dragons. Like, what's up? And she's like, and he's like, you're an awful liar. And I like that as Jaeha says you're an awful liar, Yoon and the other dragons slowly start to gather on the fire too, like what's going on? And he's like, Hawk looked pretty gloomy. Because Jaeha is very relatable to Hawk. So Jaeha knew when Hawk was upset, he's like, it's probably something to do with Yona. Because Jaeha's been in on this whole mutual pining for like the last 10 volumes. He knows. And she's like, I didn't know what to do. And he's like, take it slow and tell us. And so she's like, well, Hawk has a fiancé. And Yoon and Kija are like, okay, wait, what? And they're like, wait, what? Is this true? Like, they're just like, I love their expressions like, oh, ah. And so I love that. And I love Jaeha's like, Sheena, Zeno, wake up. The gossip's on. The tea is hot. It's great. And so then Jaeha's like, well, what did you do? And so she explains what happened. And I like that she goes, I then said, and they said, do you not need me? And I love that Yoon and Jaeha are like, oh. They're like, no, they know exactly what Hawk was meaning. And she's like, well, so I told him that I was able to handle things without him. And I thought I should set him free. And they all just fall over like, Yona, no! I love they just topple. And I love that Yoon is on top of Jaeha. And Jaeha's up into Kija. And Kija's got like this little hand patting. It's so freaking precious. Ah! Oh my God. I gotta take a picture of our dragon therapy session. The dragon therapy the dragon's couple session is just, it's the best. And Yoon is like, look, Yona, it sounds like you're saying you don't need him. And she's like, well, that's not what I meant. And Yoon's like, you put him in an awkward position. You probably upset him even though you didn't mean to. And Yona's like, oh. I love Yona's like, I need to explain myself better. And I love that Kija says, you don't have to explain yourself better. Just be straightforward. Just tell him how you really feel. And I'm sure Hawk will understand. She's like, oh. And Jaeha's like, this fiancé thing has never been brought up in the past. You might want to ask him about it and confirm it because you should ask him just to be sure. And so I love that Kusanagi, thank you for having these characters come out and communicate with Yona and be like, you need to talk to him. Don't do this melodramatic silence bullshit. Like, communicate. Say how you feel. They're like, ask him these questions. I've read so many stories that have had plot lines not exactly like this at all, but like with a similar romance, like the misunderstandings, every Christmas time movie, rom-com, it's like, no. And it's like, no, just talk it out. Just talk it out. Don't be all sneaky and silent about it. No. And so then Jaeha says, would it bother you if you had a fiancé? And she blushes and is like, well, when you put it like that, it would bother me a lot. And Jaeha's like, you love him. Yeah, I thought so. I love it. Kija's just like, mm-hmm. And he's like, tell him that too. She's like, I can't say that. And so he's like, look, she says he thinks he's angry. And Jaeha's like, no, if you're honest with him, if you're not honest with him, you might not have that talk and you will leave things with this big misunderstanding and never get it sorted out. It's like, exactly. And he's like, are you okay with it ending like that? Do you want there to be this big misunderstanding? And I love the panel of Zeno being like, you should just talk to him. I love that Zeno approves of Jaeha's words. And she's like shaking her head like, I'm not going to be okay with it. And she's like, he just left, but I want to see him. And then Sheena, of course, is like, oh, look, there he is. And he just came back. He's like, I just went and got some food. And that's all I did. Some food and some weapons. And then this conversation where Yona's like, Hawk, I'm sorry about yesterday. And he's like, why are you apologizing? And so she talks it out with him. And they're all like, Ayami, fiance? And Hawk's like, oh. He's like, that's why you told me to go back and said you released me. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I have to tell him. He's like, but it's not like I don't feel. He's like, you're important to me. And so she's like, please stay with me. And Hawk's like, we've had this conversation. I love that Hawk is like, haven't I told you over and over again, I won't leave you. He's like, no. He's like, I'm not. And I love that Hawk just lays it on the line. He's like, I'm not doing this out of a sense of duty. Figure it out, won't you? He's like, I've licked honey off your hand, damn it. Do you not get it? He's like, I care about my tribe and I'll save them if they need me to. But then when he said, this is the only place for me to go home to, it was like, oh my God. And I love that Yoon's like, oh, and Jaeha and Kija are like, oh my God. And Zeno's like, just like patting Sheena's back, like, Zeno approves. Like, it's just it's so cheesy and wonderful. And they're like, oh my God. And he's like, don't tell me that you're fine. I should return to Fuga like some stranger. He's like, it makes me feel like a little kid when you do that. He's like, you said you'd release me, but I'm not following you because King Il ordered me to. And so we see like him in the past. He's like, you might not think you're as worthy of this, but I've willingly followed you. I've been overwhelmed by your strength and passion, and I want to devote my life to you. I'm like, husbando, the top one. This is why, y'all. This is why. You asked why. This is it. You're the one who taught me the pride of serving someone. And I love that Zeno's like, Kija, you want one? Thanks, Zeno. Yeah. Everybody, Sheena doesn't know what to do. Sheena's like, is this supposed to be a touching moment? But Yoon and Kija and Jaeha are like, this is too much. And she's like, what about Ayame if you're not going back? And I love that Hawk is just like, okay. That's the final straw. He's like, you know what? I love that he says, I'll say this once. The old man decides she's my fiance. Ayame has a boyfriend, all right? And when he says, you're the one that I love. And then I love that all the tissues come down and Yoon and Kija and Jaeha are like, and Sheena's like, with Pyukyu, and Zeno's like, I've known this all along. Oh my God. He's like, Ayame has a boyfriend and I love you. So she and I are obviously not getting married. He's like, I'm exhausted and done for. Do you get it? And she's just like, yeah, like all blush. And he's like, okay, I feel better now. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then there's a picture of Hawk with the cherries and Yona with the strawberry on the back in little cat outfits. There were some characters I wanted to draw more of, but it was difficult to do so while I was drawing the Nation of Xing arc. I placed these three on the back cover since it's my last chance to draw them in color. I'll have to look that up. Oh my God. Hawk's like, good. I love you. I said it. We're all good. Oh my God. Like the can of worms this is going to open up. Like just the dragons being like, it's happening. Like Michael from The Office style. Oh my God. Just, oh my God. It's amazing. It's amazing, y'all. That confession was, it's so perfect for Hawk. It's so perfect for Hawk. And what I love about it is that Hawk is just, he's so blunt and to the point. He's like, no, I'm going to communicate to you because I love you. And I want this to, he's like, I'm tired of beating around the bush. you have claimed that you don't need me to be your bodyguard anymore, then fine, I'll tell you how I feel. And I'm like, I love that he's had all this pent up emotion in him the last 2 volumes. He's been like, I love her. She kissed me. I don't know what to do with these feelings. And so I feel like once she kissed him, he was like, oh, so that's there. Okay. So it's mutual. Okay. And then he's been like, all right. And then when she kind of rejected him, he was like, well, maybe it's not mutual. And then when he finds out that it was a misunderstanding, he's like, oh, well, shit, I'm just going to say it. It's like, oh, it was so good though. I'm like on cloud 9. I'm just like, it's all out. So now it's like, how are the dragons going to deal with this? Are they going to eternally tease Hawk? How is Hawk going to deal with this? I mean, he said he loved her, so how's that going to go? How is Yona going to deal with this? She's just sitting there like, huh? Like, it's all out there. So what do we do now? Oh my God. I can't wait for volume 27. I can't. And we're done with this arc, so it's like we're starting a new arc, and I have no clue where the story's going. So fun times. Fun times. I freaking love it. And I am so excited and can't wait to hear what you all thought of this arc too. And this volume. So I'm excited to hear your comments down below. But oh my God, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. I can't wait to hear your comments down below. But yeah, I'll be back very soon with volume 27 of Yona of the Dawn. Bye.